Welcome back to the Nullified Take channel here on YouTube, where we've got the TNT takes for you on the Challenge World Championship Episode 6. That's right, I'm your host, Chris, and with me again, as always, is my co-host, Kahuna. Kahuna, what a great episode. It feels like we've just been in a heavyweight round, and we're heading into the final round, number 12 for the knockout, and that's kind of where we started on this episode, because we left off with Kiki and Darrell having to make a decision, and that's exactly where this episode started.
Yeah, absolutely. And we were annoyed at the cliffhanger, and we had a guess as to why we think it may have happened. That there might not have been an elimination at the end. It turns out we're right. Different reason, different
Yeah.
non-elimination. But to start an episode off with Wes and Zara standing there waiting for Darrell and Kiki to make their decision, and we kind of talked about it last week. Like, could Ben and Casey be the fun option, like the crazy pick from Darrell? We thought he'd go safe. We thought he'd go sound. And to kick it off with throwing a Ben and Casey up against Wes was what we've been waiting for. The kind of like game-changing stuff, to not just go with the same thing over and over again. And we got to see it straight off the bat. I loved it.
Yeah, I listen, Darrell, I always knew he wasn't going to go up against any of his legend alliance that he's probably got there, people that he's played this game with before, people that he needs to keep happy, because when he comes back for the next season on All-Stars, or when he comes back for the next season, he needs to make sure they're not upset with him. So I knew he wasn't easily going to go and throw Jordan down there. So seeing Ben and Casey go down there, it was still shocking to a certain degree, because they were never really a part of the discussion. But when Kiki explained it in regards to Ben trying to throw shade towards the Australian alliance and making the Australians turn on each other, that was just a step too far. I mean, ultimately, we know how the end of this episode works out. But at this point, Kiki wasn't willing to go against the Australian alliance, and she throws Ben and Casey down there. And you know what? One thing I do really love, Kahuna, at the moment in this season is we're seeing Casey who's under pressure. We've never seen this before. She's never played the game before and not been in with the numbers. Like, I feel like she's been playing the game on easy mode until this point, and now both her and Ben are having to fight for themselves, for their lives in the game so early on here this season.
One thing I've loved about the season, what we said from the beginning, is that each of the pairs, or at least the overwhelming majority of the pairs, look like at least physically they can compete really well. And this was shaping up to be one of those. With the Wes and Zara, we've seen compete very well, get a win on a daily. Then Ben and Casey, we know how strong Casey is. We know how strong Ben is. I was really excited to see how that plays out. And you're right, for Casey to be under pressure, which she doesn't have, they stepped up. Like, Casey looked phenomenal in this challenge, and for her to even say, I'm going to take that was an interesting thing for me, the choice that played out between who got to hold and who got to do the maths, which was an interesting way that it played out. I wonder how it seemed very convenient that, considering Zara is dyslexic and said that she's not great with numbers, it was always going to be Wes having to do the maths, and then on the other side, conveniently, Ben also saying his shoulder, which is very real. But I wonder if they were like, hey, Ben, maybe you do, you do the maths on this one. I know Casey's really bad at maths as well. She struggled with puzzles and things like that in challenge. So maybe that played a part of it. But how much did producers go, hey, having you up against Zara might look a bit funny. let's mix that up and have Casey going up against Zara. But even that looked completely one-sided.
My opinion is they should have had both the men and the women should have done both parts of this elimination, and they should have done a timed event. So whoever held the weight up the longest out of both of the men and the women combined, that's the team that wins. Because to me, that's the most fair way of doing it. I don't like it when there could potentially be one weak link, and I kind of feel bad calling Zara a weak link in this specific elimination, but I mean, she's skinny, and like she even said going into this, she didn't have a lot of faith in herself, very skinny arms. She had to pull a lot of weight to keep it up there. I mean, I kind of did a count on it, and I believe that Ben had one red weight, which was a heavier weight, and one blue weight stacked on her specific to arms, and then Wes had 3 of the blue weights, which is the lighter weight. So he took the easy option, tried to stack as many of those up there for Casey. So it could have been very equal in weight, but it didn't go for a very long time. This was clearly an elimination that did not last very long, and we end up seeing one of the best in Wes, go out so early. He holds the record for most elimination wins. And I kind of felt like we didn't get him out there fighting. And maybe it wouldn't have been a difference because maybe Zara would have still struggled immensely in putting any weight onto Ben's two Olympic bars there on the challenge. But overall, I did like the spectacle. I thought it was visually quite appealing seeing this play out. But the biggest part for me of this whole elimination was Wes's words after it took place, Kernan. We spoke about that off air last night.
Wes, look, I'm going to say something controversial here because I do love Wes as well. He's an absolute legend of the game. I'm really glad he got to have that speech because outside of that, I think this is one of the worst, most embarrassing performances for Wes in his challenge history. To be the legend that he is, as good as he is, he's working with Bananas and Jordan in the same season. He's paired with Zara, who he says is one of the best partners he could have had as far as being that will listen to him, that will not push back on his strategy and his ideas, and who is more than physically capable. And he's gone out third after a massive strategy botch up that got them into elimination, and then being Wes not being able to do 4 times 8 equals 32. You know what I mean? Like for Wes, and you saw it when he did the confessional. That's like he said, "This is embarrassing for me," and it felt like it wasn't the normal bravado, cocky, almost bullshitty kind of Wes. It felt very real that he felt embarrassed by his performance because considering who he is and what his stature is and what his status is in this game, it really was quite embarrassing. But for him to close it out with the classiest speech and really acknowledge the fact that he is going out so early is a testament to the level of play that the MVPs are bringing to this season. And he said, I wouldn't have expected this level of gameplay 20 years ago, or I couldn't have imagined it. And I love that about Wes, that he can acknowledge the game while still going out, recognizing that he got beaten by a better team on the day, I guess.
It's interesting you say his worst performance because immediately I had to pull up, I'm not going to lie, I pulled up
maybe
the
not
wiki to remind myself just in case I had it wrong. But his worst performance, I believe, was Double Agents where he went second. So it's not like we haven't seen Wes go early before. He's always hit and miss for me.
Yeah, why did he go out though? I meant the fact that it was he said he called it a series of unfortunate events, and the fact that Wes himself was the one that botched and made massive strategy mistakes. That's what I meant. Not necessarily going out the earliest, but how did he go out? It was embarrassing what led him to this point. Like if he goes into an elimination because he's fighting against Bananas and there's like a whole thing where they're trying to throw each other in. He's got his crew behind him. He's got a partner that he really thinks is great. And he's still stuffed up the strategy, stuffed it up, got him in the end, and then couldn't do maths. Even the strategy side, he said, I'm going to go for the blues and do the really quick ones first. He wasn't fast enough on doing them. I don't know how fast he could have been, to be honest, with Zara versus Casey. But he chose to do that strategy and it didn't work. And they went out. So that's why I'm saying
I think we're being a bit critical on him there. I mean, Ben only had 2 equations solved. And that's what made Zara fail.
And
I
the
think
red
this
one
must
only
have been
just got on there as well.
Exactly. I think this must have been one of the quickest eliminations in the history of the show. I think you're being a bit harsh on him there. But I will say, Wes, for me, I agree with you. The speech, classy. And there's some challenge fans out there that needs to hear this on repeat. There is no show without new players coming into the game. This show, I will call it out, will be dead in the next 10 seasons if they don't bring new people in, because these legends, these game players that have been there for so long, they're fun to watch. There's more and more gray hairs coming into Bananas' beard right now. The guy's getting old. Doesn't mean he can't still hang with the new kids, but if Bananas, CT, and Wes all decide to hang it up at the same time, who's going to carry this franchise on their shoulders? Because those are some of the biggest names that we've had for a very long time now that have done that. And Wes has always said he has the ability to put himself in the producer's shoes. He knows what makes good TV. That's why him, Bananas, and CT have always come back. That's why they've been a staple on the show. And he's looking at this from a production standpoint, thinking, we need these new players. We need these people to elevate our gameplay. Yes, are they going to get it wrong? 100%. Wes still gets it wrong, and he's been there how many seasons, and he can go first or he can go last. The other thing that I really appreciate about Wes, right, is that he's got a champion's mentality. And what I mean by that is that when he goes early, he doesn't blame his partner for it. No, he takes all the ownership. He's like, I'm the experienced one. I should have known better. This is not on Zara. I made mistakes, 3 mistakes in a row, or however many mistakes that got me eliminated early in this game. I will learn from that when I come back, and I will be better. And Wes always learns, and he always comes back better. But the thing with Wes is, I actually love seeing him on our screens. If he goes early, if he goes deep, that is half of the fun. You never know which Wes is going to show up. He really is the mad scientist of the challenge. Like every season he comes back, he brings entertainment. He either goes deep or he wins, or he goes early. This season, sadly, we saw him go early. But I really felt his message that he gave to the MVPs and making them feel valuable, because we still know, even in this episode, there are some legends that don't respect the pedigree of some of the MVPs that are coming into this game. Maybe you could also say some of these MVPs don't respect the experience that the legends have. And we'll definitely talk about that when we get into some of the conversations that happen a little bit later on in the episode. But let's get back into them going back to the house. There is a lot of worry for Darrell now, because he's like, oh, snap. I tried to throw Ben and Casey in there. They didn't go home. You and I both know Ben is a fighter. He fought like no one else's business in the season that he won. They're starting to awoke. The beast inside of him is awakening, I would say, this specific week. I was very happy with how Ben and Casey dealt with this whole scenario. And I think Casey is bringing a level of calmness to Ben's game that is going to be very valuable for them as they move ahead in this game. Because Ben on his own, I think Sarah was right, would have exploded. But Casey is keeping him calm in these conversations that they're having with Darrell and Kiki when they get to the house.
I loved it. It was very, very clever. And the fact that Ben even said, like, if we come and act professional, it might even be more scary to not come back all hot-headed to say, no, this is just a day at the office. We're professionals. We come to work. We're going to take you out, come back. Let's do it again, without being all vengeance, revenge. Like, I hate you. Like, that's very, very cool. You see that the opposite reaction a lot. And I think it is. You're right. Casey is that calming influence on Ben, which he seems to need. That conversation as well was, I what did you think of the way Darrell handled that? Like,
Listen, I think that Darrell is a experienced campaigner. He's been in the game for a very long time, and he knows that less is best, right? So you don't want to give too much information away about why you did what you did. Yes, it could paint a target on Darrell's back, but I don't think Darrell and Kiki are the people that Ben and Casey are looking at right now. Kiki is on the Troy side of the alliance. Both of them want to work with Amber and Troy. They're looking at the other Australians at this side. But Ben doesn't, not Ben, Darrell doesn't want to be collateral damage by throwing a name out there. So you could perceive it both ways. In my opinion, they handled it the right way. They shouldn't have given names. They shouldn't have said too much there. And saying less, I think, was best in this specific scenario. It's still too early to throw out names.
yeah, like I wouldn't necessarily I like how he said, I know why I did it. I'm not going to tell you about it. But I didn't necessarily like the way that Darrell, who's, a veteran, goes, I don't know, man. I couldn't think of a name, so I just said yours. Like,
Yeah,
it
because that's a
felt
flaky.
so, yeah, it sounded so, and I was like, you have the perfect excuse when it was Ben and Casey, in that they were second last, right? They scored 0. Like, if they were the ones that were next last to West, and that is the fallback excuse when you're trying to be, not saying names, trying to be honor, like keep it as a fair thing. Like, well, you were second last, they were last, you were second last. So
Yeah, but that doesn't work, Kahuna. That doesn't work in the challenge. The challenge, you should never look too far ahead. You should never plan too far ahead in the challenge, because if you do that, it doesn't work. It could blow up in your face, apparently.
Yeah, oh yeah, that's right. That's what you don't even
too much. You don't want to have too much strategy.
2 weeks. Not even 2 weeks. Don't look 2 weeks ahead.
We'll talk about that in a little bit, because that was a very interesting conversation as well. But that's pretty much as we get from that conversation back at the house. We go straight into the next day, where Troy and Amber doesn't feel like they have a home in the game. They have a bit of a conversation here with Tori, and they are very aware that Emily and Grant are close to Sarah and Danny, and they don't feel a part of this. So a lot of the gameplay that has happened this season, Kahuna, has been because of the MVPs. Like, what drama has the old school players brought? Like, would we have had anything to discuss if it was just legends playing this game, because it feels like all these rifts and different relationships have really, the MVPs have been carrying the drama this season.
Which is funny to think about when you know, and I guess that goes to show that
It's because they're not
the
friends.
well, exactly. The legends have got such familiarity and friendship, and once you do seasons and seasons and seasons together, they essentially become colleagues that you work with all the time, and they're friends. Whereas, yeah, the MVPs, they've done one season together where they were against each other and rivals and competitive, and then now have to do a season where you're supposed to be together. It doesn't really jive that way, like you can't just flick that switch and go, well, I've got a badge here now that says Australia, so we're going to do it that way. When next to me is a legend who is got a legend over there. And like, that's what's fascinating about this is all the different relationships and stuff. And you're right, it's actually being driven and pushed forward, and that momentum is coming from the new kids on the block, the MVPs, and it's so fun to see.
How can, like, I know I'm constantly saying challenge fans. There's a lot of challenge fans who feel like you and I and like the drama that the new kids bring. But there's this portion of challenge fans that are so protective of the legends who don't want to see anybody new into the game. How can they not be entertained by seeing this drama play out and seeing some of the legends being challenged? Like, I find it very difficult to understand, Kahuna. You've been a fan of the challenge a lot longer than me. Can you maybe tap into why people are so protective of the old school players in the game and why they want to see everybody being happy and playing together and not have this drama out there?
I understand it, but I don't necessarily buy into it myself. I'm not the type of guy that feel like, even though I have even outside of like the challenge and survivor and reality world, I know nostalgia is such a powerful, powerful force. You can see
Mm,
behind me, there's a Voltron toy there. There's like
mm.
an Iron Man glove and Jurassic Park dinosaurs. Everything
Top
that was
Gun,
like
right? Top Gun. Top Gun was like the highest grossing movie
Yeah,
when it came back.
exactly. Nostalgia is a very, very powerful drug. And for a lot of fans of the challenge, it represents a time like when they loved it was when they were young themselves. They were having fun. They were free. They
Mm,
were either in college or high school or whatever the case is. That moment in time encapsulated a time when they enjoyed that, right? And they want to keep it as is. But the problem with that is it never stays that way. And the show that you like, well, I mean, the challenge is even different, even more different, because they can still have that. And the thing that I love is that if you want the MTV, the challenge is still there. Challenge USA, Challenge World Champion, Challenge Australia, Challenge. There's all these different shows now. There's
for
All
different
Stars
people.
for the OGs. There's still the flagship one, and now this is a new version of it. And it might not be exactly the same, but I, for one, like, you've still got the flagship. They haven't taken it away. You've still got All Stars if you want the old people and the OGs. That it's a little bit different. There's nothing in the world that caters to the fandom for the different. Like, there's no versions of Survivor where you can go, oh, we can get the old people on Survivor
Yeah, like
version. Like, yeah,
where's Survival All Stars on Paramount Plus that has the old 39 days? You only
yeah.
get maybe two idols, one before the merge, one after the merge. There's two tribes. Like, where's that? Like, Survivor fans don't get that. Like, maybe Challenge fans just can't be satisfied.
It very could well be, because they've got everything on a silver platter right now.
Yeah.
And if you want your original stuff, it's there. If you want your OGs, that's there. If you want the new version, which is so much fun, it's right here, and it's knocking on the door going, look at how good this show is, even in
Mm,
comparison to the flagship. Like,
yeah.
right now, I think, like, how one of the big controversies is in Survivor being the big daddy of reality shows is Australia actually better than the US at the moment?
Mm.
And arguably it has been for a little while, and clearly for me this season is. I'm wondering how long before a show like World Championship can take that banner away from the MTV flagship. You know what I mean? Because this season is showing that it won't take long if they continue to keep doing the same tired old play in the flagship show and have innovative new people pushing boundaries on the world championship. Then I think the world championship is going to supersede it pretty quickly.
I'm a bit worried about if they can keep this momentum, because the Challenge USA season 2, I've heard rumors,
Yeah.
will have MTV players come over to it. And that, to me,
Hmm.
it's like it defeats the purpose. So we're going to
Yeah.
have Vacation Alliance 2.0 go over to the USA now? No, why don't we keep getting and feeding, using this as a feeding show to bring new MVPs into the game, exciting players from CBS. There's so many great players they can still bring from there. But yeah, I'm a bit worried. But let's see how it plays out. I'm with you on this. I think it's exciting. I've enjoyed it. The MVPs have been very much a part of the drama, and in my opinion, has really, really been the main force behind why I've enjoyed this season so far. But not saying that some of the legends can't step up, because I'm seeing some signs of certain players that are laying low, that are extremely dangerous, that could take control of this game very quickly, because they definitely have the pedigree to do so. But getting into the daily challenge, what a fun daily challenge. They've got this big inflatable obstacle that they have to jump on from this big podium, and then it launches the other player into the air where they have to go over these beams, and if they clear them, it takes time off from their time, and they got to swim from one end of the lake to the other and complete a puzzle. Very easy puzzle to complete, but what a fun challenge. What a fun challenge to see play out on our screens. And I couldn't help but think Liz Parnov from Australia Survivor would have been perfect, because she's a pole vaulter. So they should get her out there next time, because they would have been just as amazed by her form as they were about Emily, an Olympic swimmer, being out there doing really well in the Olympic swimming part of it.
You know how there's that thing when you watch a challenge and you wonder how you would perform in that?
Yeah,
I personally, I don't get to do that very often myself, but I just imagined the blob thing. If I did it, I would just send my partner straight over to the shore. They would just land like right next to the puzzle piece, like
they would have
immediately
half
just
the distance to swim.
yeah, like I just shoot them straight into the atmosphere and
Yeah.
go send them flying. If it was like a Zara or something, she just like. But I'd probably, I don't know, I would probably in this challenge, at least for that very, very first part. After that, I'm done. But just falling on the thing, I think I could do better than Grant.
I think most people can do better than Grant. Listen, I know I was having a bit of a laugh when I saw it at first, but then immediately before he even said that he felt this pain in his leg, I was thinking to myself that looked dangerous. Like he must have injured himself. And that's the thing about the challenge. They sometimes they go to the edge on what they do, and people do get injured doing the show. And it was a really sad way to see Grant go out of the season. I don't feel fulfilled with Grant, and I hope we do get to see him come back. And, even though on his original show he wasn't my favorite, he kind of won me over a little bit this season, because he came in with a different attitude. He was a great partner for Janae. And it's unfortunate that an accident not only took Grant out of the show, but also Janae, who has been an absolute badass, like, for the last couple of seasons. Like she said, she hasn't been last in a very long time in a daily.
I mean, I thought it was crazy that like we last week we saw excavators swinging people around at high speed. We've seen all these crazy, potentially dangerous challenges, and the one that really ripped his knee out was like a water play thing that people do at summer camp. And if like I haven't done it myself, it's not a big thing in Australia, but like I know the blob thing that I've seen so many times on like your montages of kids having fun in the water and stuff, and everyone does it. And that's the one thing that took Grant out. Is crazy. But yeah, it is a shame to have him go out on such a simple thing like that when he was, at least in the early part of the season, dominant, like physically dominant, and being a very, very, very big contender to push these legends with Janae by his side. I think he had a shot for sure. To see him go out like that is a very real shame. So yeah, it was a very good. Like, what about a couple things stood out for me for this challenge? Sorry, if I can throw to you as well. Emily copped a lot of like sunshine, like a lot of spotlight, and we got to see an Olympic gold medalist in action and live up to the hype as well. They were all blown away, and it made Yes look like he couldn't swim at all. Like she did like
Yeah.
three,
Like
three
I
or
was the whole time, I was like, is Yes that bad of a swimmer, or is it just because Emily is that good at what she does? But like Sarah said, like you just see her moving and it's elegant. There's almost like
gliding.
no movement. She's gliding through the water. It was
Yeah.
really impressive to see when you're comparing her to other people out there that's like the average Joe Smo trying to swim in the water, and it looks
I
like they're
didn't think
drowning.
I didn't think Yes was like, is Yes not a good swimmer? Like I just assumed that he was pretty good physically across the board, right? Like with his
Same.
performances on All Stars, which is crazy. It's a very fascinating one. I wrote this down as well because I had to rewind just to check if I saw what I saw or saw what I or didn't see what I didn't see. There was
Tell me.
one contestant who did not get shown on that blob at all. Do you know who didn't get shown flying through
No,
the air?
tell me.
Amber.
Interesting. Do you think that
So
she?
they showed
I
a
thought I did
close up
see
of
it.
Troy. They showed a close up of Troy hitting the thing and him bouncing off. They showed her waiting to go, but there was no impact of Amber, no flying through the air, no hitting the bar, no hitting the water,
I'm pretty sure she
nothing.
did, though. I'm pretty sure she did the challenge.
She did, but I think they don't want to show a pregnant woman on TV getting flung through the air and smacking into
Because
water.
we know it's
I,
coming.
yeah.
We
So
know
when I
it's
saw, I was
coming.
like, why did they show that a bit weird? Troy got the close up of hitting, but then
Mm.
nothing of Amber. And I was like, let me check that again. I was like, they didn't show it. So she did it. She definitely
Oh,
did the
100%.
challenge. I don't think they like showing that the
Because
impact
they
on a
showed
pregnant
they showed
woman.
the finish. They showed where she swam
Yes.
out with him. One of the other things in this daily challenge that really stood out to me, and this is why Bananas is still a very fun person. He clearly knows what to say to the cameras. He talks about Justine being like so scared of being out there and being like, I can't swim. And then as soon as they hit the water, she's like Michael Phelps, like 10
Yeah.
body lengths ahead of him. And I will say, looking at Justine, she was also looking like she was gliding, like she was flying down there. It was hilarious to see because Justine is really undercover. Like you can easily forget about her because she's being outshone by bigger personalities in the game right now. But I think Bananas has got a pretty solid partner in her.
He absolutely does. I think she is. I mean, his thing is going to be that she's so tight with Sarah and Danny, and that goes against his wishes. But as far as performance goes, if they can stick together and they're on the same page, yeah, he's got a partner that can take him to the end as well, for sure. And she does too. Like everyone knows, Bananas is hyped, but there's a reason for it. He gets to the end and he gets far all the time. And if she
Mm.
can get to the finals, then he's got a good shot of winning, especially now without Wes in the picture.
I was going to say, I was so gutted not to see Wes doing this challenge because we know Wes is a really capable swimmer as well. And I think Wes going up against Jordan and also wasn't surprised with Tristan doing well. Tristan was very solid in his own season when it came to water challenges. So I knew he's a good swimmer. So seeing him, and another thing that people don't know about Tristan, if you haven't watched the UK, is also a really good cyclist. So if he does get to the final, I think that's his thing, is cycling. So, Kellyanne, Tristan doing really well, and then going up against Kaz and Jordan for Team UK, bringing it home, finally a win for the UK team. I wasn't surprised to see those four players in the top because clearly Yes was struggling, even though Emily was a beast. She just didn't have the partner that could keep up with the likes of a Jordan and a Tristan out there. But such a big win for Kellyanne, finally feeling some love in the game, finally feeling some power, and like people want to talk to her right now because she's got all the power.
Yeah, and it's just funny knowing how the episode ended up. That one time she gets power, Janae is the one that's at the bottom, and she gets to actually pick who's going to go up against and potentially take out the who she's currently feuding with. So poetic, and then for it to turn out the way it did is like again. But yeah, it is good to see Kellyanne having that moment of started from the bottom, now we're here, but then getting the rug pulled out from her for her ultimate revenge is funny to see, I think.
Yeah, and again, great sportsmanship or sportwomanship, I should say, from Kellyanne here at the end of the episode, saying she wanted Janae to go home, but not this way. She feels like every challenger needs to have a fair shot in the game to try and stay because they gave up so much to be there in the first place. She would understand that more than most, having sacrificed to be out there to go play this game. So it's sad to obviously see Janae go that way, but we'll talk about it a little bit later on. Before they go back to the house, TJ, one thing we learned about TJ this specific episode's Kahuna is he really doesn't like stalemates because he told us about 3 times in the episode, don't
The
let there be another
stalemate.
stalemate, please.
Yeah, I'm assuming the producers must hate it. I did hear was it yeah, because I've been trying to listen to different podcasts and get some insights so I can, bless our viewers and listeners with extra insights. And I think that last one with the stalemate, Troy said that it went at least 5 or 6 votes. Like they kept doing it, and the producers were asking Danny, please don't. And he said, no, I'm sticking with it. Stalemate. I don't care. And that's how they eventually ended up sticking with the stalemate. They did not want it at all, which is why they were like, TJ, say it again. No stalemate.
Why do producers not understand that it's excellent TV? It is like the best thing we've seen in a while to have a
Yeah.
stalemate out there. Like, I
I
mean,
didn't
I
know they
love
would do that.
stalemates. I
They
should
make
get a
them
t-shirt
revote.
saying, I should get a t-shirt like printed saying, I love stalemates, you know, because I reckon it's fun. It's fun to see
Yeah.
people come to a clash and not agree. And I think this is where the challenge is found lacking right now compared to Survivor. I complimented it last season or last episode because of the fact that they keep innovating with these daily challenges. But when it comes to strategy, it is severely lacking. They're not thinking some of these things through. Like even the vote here, I was thinking to myself, the fact that they have to openly vote in front of each other and they can decide the order that they want to vote in is fundamentally broken because there's nothing compelling Danny to vote. Like he can wait. And Theo and him getting pissed off at each other is great TV, but the game is broken. I feel like they need to think through that. Like, for instance, get them to pull numbers out of a bag that forces them to vote in a specific order, and that is a rule of the game, or get them to vote in private. But if you leave it up to the players, certain players that have played a more strategic game than the challenge, they're not going to just vote. They're not just going to let things be dictated to them by the producers. It's never going to happen. Like, I can understand why Danny and Sarah is kicking back on this.
Why would you? Like, if there's no specific rule, like I couldn't. If that was the case, I didn't know that. I thought producers maybe did dictate a little bit. Like, okay, you start it, and then we'll just go in a circle and
Seems
kind of
like
go
they
from
just
there,
let
right?
them
They
decide.
just
Like,
let them
let
do
the
it.
house decide.
So that means Amber and Troy, or at least Amber, was first off the bat.
She
She
was happy to do
wanted
it.
to get the. Yeah, she jumped at the chance to vote Emily. She's like, I'm voting you in. And then Danny, just by being next to it, gets to be next. He was like, nah, I'm not.
The
We're
middle
not ready
votes are
yet.
like the most useless because if you go in the beginning, you can set the momentum and the standard for where people may vote. And if you go last, you can be the nail in the coffin for the team that ultimately gets voted into the arena. But if you're in the middle, you're kind of not sure where the flow is going to go, what's going to happen. So I understand why Danny and Tori didn't want to do it. And I also understood why Theo was getting annoyed
Yeah.
because why should Danny get special treatment? Why should he get to go last every single time? I love Danny and I love Theo, and it hurts me to see both of these players go after each other. But I'm also thinking to myself, rival season, if we could ever get these two together, they're going to be a very big
They would
force.
destroy. They would destroy. But
And I'm
you're
loving
right,
it.
though. It does mean that fundamentally the producers have done like it's broken. Because if
Yeah.
there's nothing compelling to vote, there's no reason for Danny to do so in that order. But at the same time, the show needs to happen. The vote needs to happen. Like Theo is right. He just do it, man, because we all have to do it. And Danny's like, well, you do it first. It's like, well, why do I have to? Like, it's nothing set in stone that dictates how and why it happens. Then this is what's going to happen. People will find edges. People will find ways to, look for loopholes.
And I want to say, I've got a worry in me that the producers are going to look at someone like Danny after the season and they're going to say, oh, he was a troublemaker. He didn't want to play ball. He didn't want to just do what we wanted him to do. So he's probably not going to get the call back. And he probably knows it already. And that saddens me because if you look online, there's a lot of new Danny stands out there. There are a lot of people who love what Danny's bringing to the show, include me in that. I really enjoy the fact that he's bringing some drama and some fire. I think you need to look at players like Danny and thank them. Say, thank you, Danny. You're showing that the game is broken. We need to think these things through a little bit more in the future and let's amend to it. Don't be angry at the player for exploiting the cracks within the game because that's what's made Bananas a legend. That's what's made Wes a legend. That's what's made CT a legend because these people know how to play the production team, how to think outside of the box. They've been on there for a very long time now, so production loves them as well. So maybe they let them get away with a little bit more than other players. But don't blame Danny for being the person that's standing up against it. Applaud him because it can make your product better in the future.
100% right. We need these people to push. And like after 40 odd seasons or 50 plus seasons now with all the different spin-offs and stuff, you'd think that we're running these votes every single episode for the last 50 seasons. We should know where it can fall down and where it doesn't. And has no one ever said before, nah, I'm not going to go now. You go first. Like, has that never happened? Like, I don't understand what they all just sit down and
Well, you had
automatically
people
fall into
like
place.
you had people like I hate, like, people are gonna be like, you're throwing shade at people, but you got a lot of agreeable people out there who they're not really the most strategically minded newbies coming into the game, like Horacio and Olivia. I mean, were they really going to give the producers a hard time? I don't think so. People like Emmanuel and Emmy, are they really going to give the producers a
Yes,
hard time?
it's also the shows that they would have come from before as well, right?
Not
When
being
you're on,
strategic shows, yeah.
yeah, when you're in a Love Island, when you're in a thing like that, where the producers, they sculpt the show. It's not scripted, but it's not reality. You know what I mean? Like,
Mm,
and they have to be very, very agreeable to the producers in the way that the way it plays out, because they're crafting a show here. Whereas when it comes to proper reality competition with money on the line and the whole lot, so I mean, not money, they all have money on the line, but it's a different beast altogether. And you've got someone like Danny who, yeah, being a professional athlete, is looking for rules and looking for edges and looking on how to exploit. And he's not going to be pushed around if there's nothing that says that it shouldn't be. So
mm.
yeah, good on him. Good on him. But it's up to the show to set these things in place so it doesn't break down, because they're right. When we talk about, if they don't like stalemates as far as which vote, what if Danny says, no, I'm not next? There's no rule that says I'm next. I'll go last. And everyone else was like, nah, you're next.
Yeah,
Then what?
exactly. Exactly. I just
Like,
I don't get it. I don't get it. And it can be frustrating. You bring up a valid point. Some of these people don't come from shows that are strategic. And we know Survivor is the big daddy when it comes to strategy, when it comes to thinking 6 moves ahead, 8 moves ahead. Sarah is a champion. She's a winner of Survivor. We spoke about it last week on the podcast where I said she was one fire making challenge away from being called the GOAT of Survivor, the greatest to ever play the game. If she goes to the fire making against Tony, she wins that. She becomes the second 2-time winner. And in my opinion, I know there's a lot of Sandra love out there. I think Sandra is a Mount Rushmore player, but you can't compare the 2 winning games of Sandra to the 2 winning games of Sarah if she won. So I think a lot of people would have walked around saying she's the best player to ever play Survivor. I don't think Bananas knows this. I don't think he knows anything about Sarah. I don't think that he knows that she is probably in the discussion when it comes to top 10 players of all time of Survivor, in my mind. I know some Survivor people out there may disagree with that, but in my mind, if she was one fire-making challenge away from being called the GOAT, you have to have her somewhere in the top 10 of your discussions when it comes to best to ever play Survivor. And clearly he doesn't have the memo on this because he's thinking he can get her not to worry about moves ahead in the game, and that's not how the game was played. I will say in his defense, he did bring a very good point in when he said when he was going to go play Survivor, he would take advice from others maybe on how the game should be played. That's fair. But at the end of the day, Sarah's not there to be coached. She's there to win the game.
first of all, Bananas is full of shit. If he went on Survivors, he would not ask anyone for assistance. He'd be
He
thinking he's
doesn't need
doing his own thing.
assistance.
He doesn't. He doesn't. And the reason why is because I don't think Bananas knows anything outside of Bananas' world, right? So, and we've said before that the representation of Survivor so far on the challenge is not really indicative of what Sarah and Danny and Ben are really capable of, and
Yeah.
the highest.
Natalie left too early.
Natalie left early. Even like the likes of Michaela was very early. We talked about Tommy, that was early. There could have been more, but the ones that have stuck around and have got time with
Michaela is
Bananas.
fun, but
Yeah.
Michaela is not a top tier Survivor player. Let's be honest.
No. And the ones that have, like Michelle being a winner is obviously a big thing, but
But she's
they're
one of the
not.
more disputed winners. She's one of the more
She is
people looked at her
controversial.
season, and I don't want to say because I know this hurts Michelle when she hears fans talk about this. She doesn't. She had this whole thing on Winners of War where she said she had a hard time dealing with the fact that so many people thought she didn't deserve to win and that Aubrey deserved to win. Whoever wins the game deserves to win the game, but she didn't have one of the strongest winning games. And I do think that Michelle has proven with her seasons now on the challenge that she's not at that level. She's not there. But I think Danny and Sarah are showing us that they are. And I think we had that call correct.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't know how aware of it Bananas is, but he's going to find out because that conversation that he was having, I don't actually.
Can I call something out on that? I think because it reminded me of a conversation that Sarah had at Tribal Council in Winners at War, where she said that women in Survivor don't always get the respect that they deserve. People think that they should just tag along. And she mentioned the jury giving all the credit to Tony because he was playing such a big game. And I think a lot of that was directed to Boston Rob and maybe some of those players sitting there. I feel like Bananas is the Boston Rob of the challenge. And I think she sees a little bit of Boston Rob in Bananas, and definitely she did get triggered. He was right. She did get triggered. And I think that is one of the reasons why she was like, I can't with you, because she, I think, feels that she's not getting the respect as a woman player in the game that she feels like she deserves. There's a lot of people that don't like Sarah because they say she's not for the girls, but she is an alpha female. She is one of those people. She wants to be out in front. And I've never seen her be against the girls. Even in the Challenge USA, she was friends with a lot of the girls that came from Love Island. That was her alliance in that season.
Sarah plays like a man. Like, that sounds weird to say because it shouldn't
Yeah.
be a man thing or a masculine thing versus a feminine thing. But traditionally, what has been shown on TV and the mold or the archetype, she
Yeah.
breaks that, and
She's an aggressive player.
her archetype is a Tony, is a man, like, or what the archetype has been in these games. She fits that mold. She's a physical threat. She is aggressive strategist. She is not always the most tactful, if you will, in
No,
her
no,
approach.
she's like a bulldozer.
Yeah, absolutely. Balls to the wall, straight out in front. And that in and of itself is very, very polarizing. We both happen to be on the side of that polarizing line that says we love that because it is so different and so rare in women survivors. Like we covering Survivor as well. We know that it's an issue that women do get voted out after pre-merge and
Even in this
well,
latest season, we had
yeah.
some women that wanted to play aggressively that got voted very early.
Absolutely. And even looking at the season of the challenge, like when we were doing a preseason thing, thinking who are the legends coming in, we've said we can rattle off Bananas, West, Jordan. We know that CT's missing, but we're happy with the Darrell and the. But when we went to the women's side, it was a little bit harder to fill out that real deep legend of the game roster. We can go Cara Maria, we've got a Laurel,
And
and
none
then
of them are there.
and none of them there. And outside of that, we were going, I don't know. Like, it's not like not sexism necessarily, but that what Sarah is saying, the respect due to women in this game as well, because it's usually majority of the time a game of partners. We see that the male partner is often the most dominant when it comes to being the face of the partnership, the voice of the partnership, the strategic drive of the partnership, and a lot of the times that's the male in the challenge as well. Like an issue there where they don't have that same respect, and Sarah coming in and going, "Nah, f that."
She's
Like,
not willing to sit back
yeah,
and let the guys run the show while she is a second-class citizen on the game, basically. And I think that's what you mean by saying that she, because some people might take it wrong by you saying she plays like a man. The fact is that in tradition, a lot of men have always been the forefront. And that's why even when we look, like when you rattle off the legends that are coming into the season, when production had to choose them, all the big men are there. The men that have like got status are there, but the women are not there. Laurel isn't there. Cara Maria isn't there. You know, we do have Jody, I think, who some people see at that level from a previous era. And maybe Janae in her own right has also really stepped up. Tori is a new champion. I know they're trying to push her very hard, but I don't know if we can call Tori a legend yet or at that level yet of game player when it comes to. And I also think Tori is very agreeable and will go wherever the alliances are. And she's kind of following what Bananas and the other legends wants to do at the moment. But she is keeping Jordan safe. I do want to pivot the conversation a little bit here. Talk about Jordan, talk about Kaz. When I said that there are some teams, some sleepers that are like very quietly sitting in the middle, waiting for Australia and for the USA to start imploding on themselves. I'm very firmly looking at Jordan and Kaz because I've seen what Kaz is capable of. She's a beast. And I know what Jordan's capable of. Even when I saw him in this challenge, when he was swimming, I was thinking to myself, who can actually still right now challenge the Bananas record or the CT record for most championships ever on the challenge history? And Jordan Wisely is in his early 30s, mate. Like, he could still
yeah.
be doing this for another 7 or 8 years. I think that a lot of people might be sleeping on the fact that they could easily win this season and Jordan could easily be the GOAT of the challenge if he comes back enough.
I think Banana's record is not safe, and it's Jordan will break it because he's on 5 at the moment, is he?
7, I think.
No,
And I think
Bananas is
City's
7.
yeah.
Bananas
So
is
no,
7.
no.
CT 6.
So Jordan is on. I think he's on 4.
4.
I
Mate,
think
he's
yeah.
got 3 in him easy. Especially when we consider that All Stars. He got onto the All Stars roster. Like he he if he can
Yeah.
get into that All Stars flagship USA World Champs, he's got so many shots at it. He'll get 3 easy. Like I
And it
think
looks
he'll.
like when you see these players come on and they talk about their records, they're putting all of the shows in one category now. They're not looking at the main show as this is the championships they've got for the main show, this many for All Stars. Like Janae's a 2-time champion. She's not a
Yeah.
2-time All Stars champion when she's playing in this show. So I do think that the record of Bananas is in danger, possibly. Even CT, I think, is sitting on 6 at this point. He's like 1 behind.
CT's got 6.
Yeah, but CT's been impressive in these later seasons, man. Like another person who's, I'm shocked not to see him around at the moment. But moving on to the arena here, we do know that Benja, Jody, Emily, and Yes are the players that are going to be in trouble. Not good for Team Australia. They're starting to turn on each other. It's looking for all money, like Emily and Yes probably would have gotten voted in against both Grant and Janae. But Grant comes in crutches to the arena, and he does get pulled from the game. Do you think that Janae should have had the opportunity to battle someone to try and stay in the game and then take their partner in the game? I know it's part of the challenge. We see it happening season in and season out. Doesn't mean we need to like the way that people go out of this game, potentially,
Yeah, it's one of those things. It's like, I don't like it either. The fact that if your partner's injured, you're out of the game. But it seems like this season it would feel weird to just then, okay, you're now with, like say Janae had to go up against Emily and she beats Emily. Oh, you're now with, sorry, I just blanked for a second.
Well, I think what they could have done, and again, production team don't like to overcomplicate things. We know that's why we just had to go at them for not thinking through the strategy part of the game. But they had Benja and Jody and Emily and Yes in danger. They could have easily said, Emily and Yes, you're safe because Emily is an MVP. Janae is a legend without a partner. So this means that Jody and Janae now have to battle in this elimination
to see who
to
the
become the
legend
partner of
plays.
Benja. Yeah.
Gotcha. That's not bad. That's pretty good. The led to pick who the legend is that stays. They have to. Yeah. Okay. I think that could. I do like having some closure as far as what Kellyanne said. I've never actually heard articulated before, but I really think that's how I feel. Everyone deserves a chance to fight for their spot there, and the fact that they were there means that you should have that. And going home without that feels like a little bit of a robbery of some sort.
Because the reason I'm thinking this is because we both know Amber's pregnant. We both know at some point, maybe she goes through this whole season pregnant and she doesn't get pulled. But I think the chances are very slim. And we both love Troy. Troy's had hardly any edit this season so far. We haven't seen much of his personality. So I feel, and this hurts me to say this, but if Amber gets pulled next episode or the episode after that and Troy leaves the game, it's not like Troy's guaranteed a spot to come back and play again. So I don't want to see someone like that go out without the opportunity to actually go deep in this game, because unlike Janae's going to be back. So it's not as bad for her. But Troy, on the other hand, I just see 2 or 3 episodes down the road, him leaving without much of an edit, without much of a fandom built around him. And I feel worried for him.
That would be an absolute tragedy for that to happen without a real shot. So yeah, I think I'm definitely on your side that they need that closure. To have it just go out as a fizzle is such a bad thing. Like in the World Championship, where now is that that's the second injury removal, right?
Well, the first person was removed for medical reasons.
Nathan,
That was Nathan.
okay.
Yeah, but I think it was COVID.
Nathan is on our current season of I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here.
Oh, really?
Bit of a challenge link, yeah. So he went from that to the
Australian one.
Australian one, yeah. He's on the Australian version.
Go check it out if you haven't seen I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here for Australia. And if you're a fan of Nathan, I think he's from Love Island originally in the UK, if I remember
Geordie
correctly. Geordie Shore. There we go.
Geordie Shore, yeah.
Another show I don't watch, but I know that it has a massive fandom over in the UK. All right. Is there anything you wanted to bring up from this episode? Anything we didn't talk about?
No, I think we covered all the things. Like it was a good episode. It was great seeing one of the greats go out in a very classy way. We saw a hell of a challenge with Emily gliding through the water. We saw a bit of back and forth, and then for it to fizzle with an injury is a shame. But um, it's a good episode. We're in a really good spot in the season, I think.
Listen, I'm going to offend so many people by saying this. From the point that I started watching the challenge, this might be my favorite season of all time. If it keeps this pace that it's got currently, Free Agents has always been my favorite season. This might top Free Agents for me currently. I'm really loving the energy, the fighting, the drama, not manufactured drama, but real beef that we're seeing play out in front of us. And the fact that we've got some new players that are not standing back. And it's not because I dislike the Legends. I like seeing them challenged. I like seeing what's playing out there. And like Wes said, the level of competition being raised in the game. I think this is good for the challenge. I'm high on this season. And at this point, it would have to take a massive U-turn for me. But I can't see how it would, because everybody that's still in the game, maybe except for Benja and Jody at this stage, because I don't really know how I would feel about a win for them unless suddenly they make me like them a lot more in the game. I almost feel like I would be happy with most people in the game going to the end and winning at this stage.
Yeah. Interesting that you said about the drama. I love that perspective. The fact that it's chock full of drama. It has drama, but it's not based of who slept with who or previous relationships or things on social media. It's based on the game. Like, I want you out, you want me out. Now there's how are we going to do that? That's where this beef is coming from. The feud with Janae is fueled. Janae and Kellyanne was fueled by a previous relationship, but based on what is the strategy of this game. And that's what's fascinating, is that Bunna Murray has hit the, like we were talking about the Legends casting. Was Nelly a good choice? Was maybe Argentina might be a bit out of the depth, but why we're seeing one of the best seasons for a long time is because there are so many big game players here, all competing and all pushing hard, rather than a few people driving the boat with a lot of sort of people just along for the ride.
I think we should come up with 2 separate videos on the channel to talk about who do we want to see at the next World Championship or Challenge USA that could continue to raise the bar, and also for Australia, who would we like to see there? Because if Australia ever gets that second opportunity, man, I really hope they make the right decisions on who's going to be out there. But that is it here for this week. I had so much fun talking to Kahuna about episode 6. Let us know in the comments below, how are you feeling on this season? Am I being over dramatic by saying that I think this is maybe the best season we've ever seen, or definitely the best season that we've seen in the last 10 seasons plus? Because it's been a while since I've felt so engaged with a season. Maybe it is because I've seen a lot of these players play on Survivor and other shows, and I'm bringing that love for that to the show as well. So it's just hitting that sweet spot for me when I'm watching the challenge. But let us know your thoughts and comments below. Consider subscribing to the channel. That is the best way to show support to this channel as we continue to grow. And it does help with our credibility when we want to reach out to players maybe in the future and get them on here for exit interviews and things like that. But for now, that is it. Catch you guys next time. Bye.